I want to express how incredible an opportunity it is for you guys to be able to not only hear from some of the people that we're bringing in to talk, but to have an opportunity to ask questions. And Kelly is not only one of the world's best stunt people. She is Jen Aniston's stunt double. She's a stunt coordinator. I'm gonna start making up people. She's the I was gonna say Charlize Theron, but then she told me she's not Charlize Theron's stunt double. She doubles for the actress from 1923, who's incredible. Is that right? Or 1883? One of the numbers. I love the actor, and more so, I love the stunts that she does. And yeah, I'm sure I'm leaving some people out, but she's a Guinness Book of World Records holder for jumping off the Eiffel Tower. She is one of the she was an LSU Tiger. And she was an LSU Tiger, 3-time All-American gymnast, and she was part of Cirque du Soleil, and I'm not sure which show, so you'll have to fill us in on that, Kelly. And she also spent some time as an educator and loves to teach. She taught special education, and I am so excited to introduce to you my friend and someone who helped me get through some of the craziest stunts, definitely without a doubt the craziest stunts I've ever done on a movie, but the craziest stunts that have ever been done in the history of movies. So without further ado, I want to introduce you all to what's her name, Andy? I'm just kidding. Kelly Phelan.
Woohoo! Hi, everybody. That was a nice introduction, Jeremy. Thank you. Basically, as a child, I was into sports. So sports was my segue into the career I'm in now. And I did gymnastics at a young age, all the way through college. But when I was in school, I actually got a minor in theater, and I fell in love with theater. I just didn't know what part of theater where I fit. So, I took a semester doing lighting and sound and like every part of it while I was in school, but I still had this deep down feeling that I was an athlete, and I didn't know much about stunts or anything like that. So when I finished college, I went on to do Cirque du Soleil. With my gymnastics background, it was the next transition. And I did Cirque for a few years in Vegas. I did a water acrobatic show called Le Rêve. It was at the Wynn in Las Vegas. And I fell in love with live shows. There's nothing like live theater, live shows, same thing. It was exhilarating, and I got to be an athlete and perform. So I loved that. After a few years of it, though, I still felt like I wanted to dabble in film and television. I had an interest in earning to learn more about it. So I moved to LA, again, not knowing what exactly I was going to do. I moved there. I had, 12 different jobs, as one does in LA. And I started just taking acting classes, getting into theater, again, just kind of figuring out where my heart settled. And I ended up auditioning for the show called Waterworld at Universal Studios. And I went and I got the job, and I knew nothing about it, did not know what to expect or anything. But there's one woman character in the show, and she's the lead, and she does acting. She drives a boat, she jumps off burning things. And so basically she's a stunt actress in the show. And that was incredible. I loved that because it was ticking off every box creatively that I wanted to do. And then when I got there, I met a ton of stunt people. It's a good segue into doing film and television in LA, is to do a live show. And the best one in California is Waterworld. So I met a lot of people that just told me about the industry. Again, I don't come from, no one in my family did anything in the industry. So I don't come from a stunt background. I was just an athlete. And they kind of just showed me the ropes. And they said, I remember my first day driving into work, I rode my motorcycle, and they were like, "You ride motorcycles? You could get paid for that. Like, that's a stunt." And I was like, "Oh, so my hobbies are stunts." So I was like, this is awesome. I love this. And so I met a lot of people at Waterworld, and they kind of steered me in the right direction and said, take classes here, or take fight classes here, go see this person, do this driving course. And I just submerged into that world with the skill set I already had, and the ability to learn other stuff. It just kind of took off. Really, it's a very word of mouth part of our industry. You usually get hired because somebody recommends you. We don't usually go through agents or anything, or don't have auditions. So I was just getting out there and meeting people, and it also, like, I happen to fall into a category of the height and the body is important too. When you're doubling women, you have to look like them. So I was a good size to double a lot of the actresses that were the leads of movies around that time. Around like 2013, 14, there was this big jump in women being the leads of movies, not just men. So I got lucky in that, as well. So I was doubling, number one on the call sheet in numerous movies over and over, which was really great too. And then I was getting not bored, but I was like, what more can I do? And so I started learning about stunt coordinating. I always had a good, I'm always good at organizing. I'm always good at communicating with different types of people, being like a teacher, being a gymnastics coach. I like to kind of be in charge, and that kind of side of it. And that's what stunt coordinating is. It's creative, of course, but there's also like the business side of it, where you're, making the budgets and hiring everybody and sending everyone's info to every department to make sure it's, all correct, and then working with the director to create the action and storyboard. So there's that kind of brainy side of it too. You're not just a jock, you're, that part that I was kind of interested in as well. And so I started stunt coordinating, and now I'm just doing both. And again, I'm not ready to give up the performing side, but I'm coordinating as well to build for the future. And I probably won't be like a 70-year-old stunt woman, so it's something I can do when I get older. And yeah, and so then my next step, learning more, is I'd love to second unit direct and move forward in that. So that was my kind of way in.
It was very impressive, Kelly.
Thanks.
I'm going to follow that up with a question off of something that you just mentioned. Do you play guitar, or do you just have it in the background of your Zooms?
What does play like? Do you have to be good, or do you just try?
Just as do you try, and has that
I play, but I'm not good. I try.
If anybody, I'd love if anyone has a question, you could just drop it into the chat, and I could relay it, if that's cool.
For sure. We also do have Kelly's sizzle reel, or stunt reel, I guess, to show if you guys are interested to see.
And sorry, Jeremy, it's a little old. Doesn't have my Eiffel Tower stuff yet. Sorry. They say so, like, that's another thing when you're first starting out in the industry, because it's word of mouth. Somebody can say, hey, I need a 5'5", blonde to jump off of a building, or do a high fall, but you haven't done it yet. You don't have footage of it. So having that footage actually still is really important, just like an acting reel for us as well. But then they say that the second that you get a good reel, like good footage and enough stuff, you don't need it anymore, because everybody knows you. So I haven't, luckily, I mean, it's a good thing, but I haven't updated my reel in a few years. So pardon me. But yeah.
Take a look.
There's somebody on this maybe there's somebody on this Zoom that will help you update it.
Yes.
That's why.
Yes.
Can you all see okay?
Oh, my short hair.
Fucking move! If it don't hurt now, just wait a while. Another big
funny. The short hair days.
Pretty awesome. You know, it's awesome to watch that and seeing some of those early stunts, you know, those high falls and you're driving,
I
punching the
know.
Kelly, I
It's
would
fun.
love to
Yeah, it's
introduce
fun.
with a question before we get into
Sure.
the murder mystery
Yeah.
segment and clip. I noticed the driving clip, and I know you said you were like an athlete and then you kind of fell into stunts. When does the driving component come in? Because that seems like something that's like almost an addition to athletics.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's people that are very good drivers and they've spent their entire life doing it. And those are the people that are going to do the Fast and Furious and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I wanted to do, I felt like I got a little bit of a late start in the industry, age-wise, I thought, and I wanted to just try to be more of like a jack of all trades. So I took some driving courses, some stunt driving courses they have out here. And I've always liked driving, and I've ridden motorcycles and dirt bikes since I was younger, and four-wheelers and stuff like that. So I had a concept of driving. But yeah, it's more about like most people have one set thing, and then once they get in, they try to broaden their horizon as much as they can, to be, you know, the most usable. So because it would be a shame if you get on a movie and there's, you know, they have to hire four different people to do four different stunts. That's not what anyone's looking for. So I had the idea of just trying to do as much as I can, with also being honest. You have to be honest with your skill set as well. But yeah, if I got offered something that I know I couldn't do or something, I would say no. But it was fun. It was like learning something new later in life is really fun as well. So just taking the driving, probably took the most driving courses and fight classes when I first got in. That was kind of the thing I focused on the most.
What have you ever said no to in terms of a stunt? Because I've I have seen you say yes to a lot of crazy stuff, including jumping off the Eiffel Tower. Like what is it that somebody would ask you to do and you're like, that's not my thing.
Yeah, I said no one time. I was on a movie already, doubling Kristen Stewart on the Charlie's Angels, the newer Charlie's Angels movie. And there was this stunt it was somebody on a motor. She was supposed to be on a motorcycle, and she's supposed to lay down the motorcycle and slide it under a moving 18-wheeler. And I was like, there's too many factors. And I mean, I had laid down a few bikes before, but in a very controlled environment, not having to really hit a mark. And this was a moving truck, everything. I said no, and they ended up trying to find, you know, trying to find a woman that could do it, because it's important to try to match a woman with a woman, of course. They found nobody that was willing or had the skill set to do it. So they ended up using a guy he's a trick rider, and he's done a stunt like that before. And I was happy to I didn't lose the whole movie. I just didn't do that stunt, and I was happy to say, here you go. So I think thinking like a little bit long term as well. I think when we first get in the industry, we want to do everything because we think it's our last chance and we're never going to get another job, or we're broke and we need the money. But I think if you think long term, it's going to benefit you more, because A, somebody's going to trust your word, and B, you're not going to hurt yourself or somebody else. So I always think about that, you know, when I make my decisions of what I'm going to do. And now, of course, being a mom, things change a little bit more as well. Like, I'm not really wanting to do the car hits and the stuff like that anymore, because it's, you know, I feel like I put my time in and I don't really need to. We can let it, you know, let the 18-year-old fresh bodies do that. So yeah,
Great
that was
segue, because it is. I have children, and some of these decisions now that I'm making are, you know, are obviously informed by the fact that I have to be there for my family. And yeah, so at what point did that change for you? Because would you have said yes to that when you were younger?
I don't know. I think, again, because I started in stunts relatively late, and I had already done Cirque du Soleil. I did a lifetime of gymnastics. So I was kind of in the place of just being smart in the time that I had to excel in the industry. And like I said, it's, Jeremy, but even in our industry, it's even smaller in our little stunt world. You don't want any black cloud hanging over your head because it will get passed to everybody. And so a lot of people, unfortunately, are not honest with their abilities, and then they end up screwing something up or getting somebody hurt, God forbid, or themselves. And so I went into it already saying, I'm like, nope, unless I there's a difference between having like excitement, like when I'm about to hang off the Eiffel Tower and I'm excited. That's different than being just like insecure and absolutely terrified of something. And I just trust my gut with that. And it's worked out for the better, or, and something else has come around, or I turned down a driving job in the beginning of my career because I didn't know what the terminology was with driving, like hitting a mark and doing this and da da da. And this guy said, "You could do it. It's easy." And I said, "You know what? Just call me on the next one after I take a few courses." And then he really respected that, that I was honest with him, because he said most people would just say yes just to get the job. And then I ended up working for him over and over and over and over and over again, because he knew when he asked me, I was going to tell the truth. So I think with art, within stunts too, it's important because people get hurt and people die, and that's not worth, making movies over.
So important to hear that, just from a director's point of view and from a producer's point of view, or just when you're on set and you're trying to do everything you possibly can, and you've worked so hard on a movie for so long, and you're literally like sacrificing your life to kind of get a shot done, and you're not always thinking about, you kind of sometimes get caught up in the how do we get this done, and not always, and you're just kind of assuming everybody around you knows exactly what they're doing, and everybody is like, somebody else is like in charge of safety. And I absolutely love when you, or when our first AD, or when there's somebody who's like, stop, like, I don't care what is going on right now, we are stopping for safety, and we cannot do this because somebody's life is on the line. And to me, that's, it's awesome. It's really awesome to hear. I don't, Andy, I don't know if you have, if you want to get into the some of the stuff that we did with Murder Mystery. I can go mute and stop interrupting.
I will piggyback because it's important. And the thing that is good about my job is, as a stunt performer, obviously my job is to do the stunts and stuff, but I also am like the liaison for my actress. So I, talk to her and make sure she's comfortable. And I don't mind being the bad guy. Like I had to go to Jeremy and be like, sorry, she's done for the day. Sorry, she's only doing 3 times. Like, I don't mind. That's my job. And my actress and everybody will respect me because it's for the best of that. So same with being a stunt coordinator. Nobody's going to question you if you're just honest and say, nope, this is safety thing, whatnot. And at the end, even if someone's like, oh, we have to get the shot, they will be thankful that you took the time to do it right, or take the time to rehearse or whatnot in the end, because then there's no accidents or nothing bad happens on your watch. So I don't mind being the bad guy. It's kind of fun sometimes to just be like, nope, can't do it. Because we do want to do it. We do want to get the shots. We do, but we want everyone to go home at the end of the day safe and happy. So
Awesome.
Absolutely. So ahead of the class, we did send out the van sequence. All of you received that, correct? Yeah, Jeremy, we sent out 8 pages of the script of the van sequence for people to look at and kind of dissect from a stunt coordinator's point of view. So we did send out a few questions, like how many stunt performers were needed for this scene, and where, what departments did we overlap with. So I would love to kind of open the floor for Kelly to kind of dig into those questions.
Well, can we put it out to the class? Can we just we do a game here? How many shots that were in that sequence were Kelly? What's the percentage of shots you think were Kelly, and what were the percentages that you think were Jennifer Aniston? Anybody, just type it into the chat. Anybody? By the way, I don't know the answer, but I could guess. 80%, 70%, 100% Kelly.
No, Jen. That's funny.
I think they're probably close, except for Maddie. I think
Yeah.
I would imagine 70%, probably between 70 and 80%.
Yeah. And was I the only double? How many doubles? Did she have another double as well?
Oh,
Or
interesting. Would have
or
never
was
thought.
I the only one?
You were not the only one.
I
I
was not the only
but I
one.
didn't remember. But there was a local French double, correct? And then in Toronto for a reshoot, we had a double, no?
And the van scene specifically, there was oh, let's put it this way. So first, how many weeks do you think that's 4 minutes and 40 seconds? How many weeks did we shoot? Did that take? Anybody guess?
You guys can feel free to unmute as well if
Yeah,
you'd
you
like.
could just talk, right? 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Anybody? I did a little math the other day.
How many countries was that shot in?
Yeah, 3 months. That's closer. So that took 6 weeks, you guys. That 4 minutes took 6 weeks because we were in Hawaii. We started filming in Hawaii first. And we had this van. We had the van on a sound stage. So we had the inside of the van to do 2 weeks of rehearsals to figure out moves and fights inside of the van with all the lead doubles. All the ski mask guys were stunt people as well. They were cast as stunt actors. It's just easier, so you don't have to double people. You can just have someone that can do the dialogue and do the action, whatnot. While we were filming in Hawaii, they were filming second unit in France. And so there was a whole nother set of doubles, a whole nother team out there shooting. And with the time change, we would be in the mornings, they'd be in the evenings. And then they were sending us their footage so we could match. Say if they made a left turn at a street, we'd have to match that inside of the van of what they'd be doing inside the van. So that was pretty complicated part of getting it all worked out. And that whole sequence where you saw them going down the Seine River and the people jumping in, that was all second unit stuff, shot with Jack Gill and Spiro. They do all the Fast and Furious movies. So they went out and they shot that while we started production in Hawaii. Then just that ending bit where they go into the cafe, I think that was a week. Just that stuff was a week long shooting that. So that little 4 minutes was about 6 weeks of shooting. And we had multiple doubles. Another question, how many stunt people in that whole scene would you guess?
35.
35, 45. I'm looking at these guys. It's 35.
25.
Well,
what do you think, Jeremy? Because you might not know this.
can I give some hints?
Yeah.
So you needed stunt people people who are in the cafe, people who are on the street diving out of the way. You need stunt people in the van. You need stunt people in every single car driving. Oh, okay, now we're getting I think closer to where we're.
Yeah.
What was the answer?
I calculated about 95 to 100 people. Just alone in that cafe, we had 25 patrons just sitting there. We just filtered, we put some in, had some elsewhere. All the people jumping out of the way of the van. Anybody in an oncoming car was a stunt driver. We had somebody driving the van from a pod. So a pod is something you put like on top of the van where they can drive it and the person that looks like they're driving isn't actually driving. So like if they needed a shot from an actor driving the car, but the actor wasn't comfortable driving, it's actually somebody in a pod type situation driving the car for the actor, but they can still look like they're driving. And then we had inside the van, we had, when we did first unit stuff with Jen and Adam, anytime it was on Adam, it was probably me. And if it was on Jen, it was probably Adam's double Paul. So we switched out with that kind of stuff for all their dialogue. And then even the Mark Strong character who was following them, the SUV, he had a double driving as well. So yeah, that was especially for a comedy movie, that was like up there for car chases. You know, that can go to, I mean, the guys who do Fast and Furious choreographed that, all those bits. So I mean, that was a pretty complicated thing, and a lot, we bit off a lot in this movie. But it was really fun to accomplish, because especially since the first one, I liked the first one, but this one is like an action movie. You know, nobody expected a, it'll probably get, you know, nominated. We have stunt awards. It'll probably get nominated for vehicle work for stunt awards. That's how good it was. You know, that's how great it was. But it took 6 weeks to do, 4 minutes. And I would think probably you had over 10 hours of footage, right, Jeremy, that you had to sift through between everything.
Probably, I would imagine more than that.
More, yeah.
Stationary cameras for second unit. We had like 15 Spear had like 15 cameras on, like just sitting there recording a
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of footage. And the first cut of that sequence was, even before we put Adam and Jen in the movie, before we shot that, was incredible. Like literally just our stunt doubles and our second unit, it was incredible. And we ended up using, you know, we ended up leaving a lot of really great stunts on the cutting room floor, just because
you don't have time, and it's fine. You know, it's something like, as a stunt person, you can't hang on to. You have to be proud of what you do, of course, but it's you could do the craziest stunt in the world, but movies are so long, you know, you can't have 10 minutes of one stunt going on. So that's why we shoot so much and try to put it all together with the best that's going to be. I was really impressed by how it all turned out too, because it was very stunt heavy too, but had the comedy of Jen and Adam as well. So it was a really nice combination. It wasn't too one way or the other, and I think that was why it was so successful and why the audience loved it so much, because you just get a little bit of everything. Especially when you're used to a Jen and Adam movie, it's not really stunty, I wouldn't say. So when you watch something like that, you're like, that was a real car seat. Like, and we didn't really do it on green screens. I mean, we did some of the acting stuff and all that, but even in the beginning, when they're walking up to the van and they were just like getting in and getting going, that was an ongoing traffic. So we had to like time it out with the crazy 8 lanes of Paris traffic. Like, we didn't get to shut down the Arc de Triomphe just to shoot that bit. At the nighttime stuff, when they were doing the second unit stuff, we did get some road closures to be able to do some stuff. But otherwise, I remember being in the back and they were like, go, no, stop, somebody go, no. And I'm like, it's just so, it's the driving there is crazy anyways. So, you know, you're dealing with that. And they're like, you know, reset. It took us like 4 minutes to reset around all of Paris to get back to number 1. So there was like a lot of logistical things too, that you don't necessarily think about, you know, when you're shooting, especially location heavy places. So that was an interesting thing too.
Can you talk a little bit about like the dynamic between director and stunt coordinator or stunt performer? Because I'm sure in a lot of ways the director has a pretty good grasp on like controlling certain props or certain set deck and things of that nature. But I'm sure when it comes to stunts, they have to relinquish a little bit of that to be like, what can we do? How can we achieve this? And considering you're both here, can you touch on that?
Yeah, I feel like I feel like it's a give and take for both people, of course, you know, and we want, as a stunt coordinator, I want my director's vision to be as close to what he wants as possible, or what she wants as possible, with, you know, other stuff that comes in. But the beautiful part is when you can work with somebody and you kind of are a collaborative team, and Jeremy's really great at that. I mean, it's unfortunately you work with people that they're just, this is what they want, boom, boom, boom. But it's such a beautiful chemistry when everybody's helping everybody. There's no ego attached to it, and we all know what the end goal is. Everybody's on board. But to get that, you have to prepare. You have to come in with a vision. You have to prepare yourself. You have to know other people's jobs too. I think a lot of times, especially, I don't know what direction you guys are all going, if you're directing, if you're writing, if you're producing. But one advice I would say, and this lacks a lot, unfortunately, in the stunt world, is stunt people don't learn other departments. Like, they don't know what a gaffer is. And you're like, how do you not know what a gaffer is? Like, that's lighting is important. And if you're doing a big stunt, you want to make sure that person's landing where the light's going to find you. Just stuff like that you don't necessarily think of. They just think, oh, I'm just going to do my stunt and go home. But I think the part that I love is that you can have the opportunity to learn more and collaborate with somebody and talk to wardrobe and say, hey, you know what, they need to be in jeans because they need pads on their knees because they're falling down a flight of stairs. Or, and the more you know about each department, the more you look like a professional as well. Like you're not just coming in and being like, you're being a team player, you're helping everybody out. So the relationship, I think, between the stunt coordinator, the stunt people, and the director is very important, but also every department is very, very important as well. But we had fun working together. Jeremy was great with, hey, how do you think we could do this? Or what's the best? Or I have this vision, but and then both of us could have one vision, and then Adam and Jen can come in and have another vision as well. So you have to be open. You have to be the type of person that you're like, okay, you can't get too attached to something, but you have to be able to articulate what you want and pick and choose your battles, I think. But I always have a fun time working with the director if they're open to it, because I also want to second unit direct someday and direct. So for me, it's like a learning experience as well. I'll bring like my creative side and my stunt side to it, and most of the time people are pretty receptive of it. And I also come from like the side of, this is what you're going to get from my actress and that's about it, so plan accordingly. So that's like a big thing too. Or, oh, she's willing to try this, so you can try twice and then she's probably done. So it's kind of just having those open lines of communication with each other.
There was one moment that I remember just in the planning, when like Jennifer Aniston obviously like cares very much about what her wardrobe is, right? And what it's really important to work with the costume designer and the actor, because when I write into a screenplay that she falls off the Eiffel Tower, but like is caught like with she hooks the rappel line onto her belt, and then Jen and Deborah Maguire, who's incredible, but Jen doesn't want to wear a belt for this sequence, and I'm like, I kind of need her to wear a belt because it's in order to tell this story. She's got to latch the thing. I don't know how else to do it without the belt. And Jen's like, no, I think I'm not going to wear a belt. I look really good in this outfit. Like, I'm not going to wear right, let's figure this out then. And then we had to really go back. I had to work with Kelly and Deborah to figure out how, like, what makes sense logically. And Kelly was very helpful figuring that out. And then the question of whether or not the shoes, when you're shooting things out of order with second unit and you're shooting the stunt before you're shooting the actual, like the main actors, the shoes that she's gonna wear, and like when her shoes fall off of her before she jumps out the window. Do her shoes fall off of her when she's falling off the Eiffel Tower? And just thinking about that sequence, because Kelly now has to go jump off the Eiffel Tower. Is she going to be wearing shoes? Is she not going to be wearing shoes? So all these little tiny details have to be worked out ahead of time. So anyway.
Yeah, and I think the more you do, the more. So, for instance, when you receive that the script, what I would do as a stunt coordinator is I'll just go through a script and I will highlight every little thing that I think is a stunt. And it may not end up being a stunt. Like it may be like, oh, the actor can do that, so we don't need a double. But I just go through with a fine tooth comb and I do everything. And then from there, I look at the other side of it, like wardrobe wise. If someone's doing a car hit, they absolutely have to be in long sleeves and pants. They cannot do a car hit not being able to wear pads. Like it can't happen. So I think the more you do in your department to help out other departments, is important. And I mean, sometimes it's not ideal. Sometimes people get stuck in what they want and they're not willing to listen, unfortunately. But then you get these jobs like Murder Mystery 2, where it was everybody helping everybody and looking out for everybody. And that was amazing. But, the more without stepping on toes, the more you can do your own research and your own stuff. And just thinking again, like, I think because I'm a mom, I think of everything. So it's good that, I overdo it, and then you can cut back from there and, work on that. Even to the point of, if it's a water scene and someone's jumping off into the moat, like we had someone, we went through a window into a moat. The reset for that is a lot, because the hair needs to be dry. So if you think about that on the day, it's going to take 1 hour to reset both of those stunt people to do it again. So you really don't want to do that stunt twice, because you're just going to lose 2 hours of shooting. So it's like those type of things you make sure before everyone's rolling, director knows what shots he wants, stunt people are ready, special effects is ready to pop the wind, whatever it may be. Everybody is doubly, double checks everything, because again, every minute you lose shooting, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time. So like, if you can help people out in that, most of the time, 99% of the time, nobody's offended if you kind of leak into their department. Everyone's happy to have the help, because not everybody can remember everything. If somebody came up to me and was like, hey, don't you want to put a pad there? And I'm like, oh yeah, good idea. Just go with it. It's kind of like one of those relationships. And I think that makes for the best filming experiences too. It's the same thing with, if you're shooting action and your stunt coordinator does have an eye for cameras and knows how to shoot stuff, then the director can rely more heavily on them as well. Especially if it's like a director maybe that's never shot a one-er fight scene, let's say. That's very tricky. So, just getting on board and with somebody being open to somebody who's done it. Like the coordinator's like, oh, we did this on this film, let me show you what the camera op does, and da 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 da. And pre-vising it, having it all, the more preparation the better, is what I'm kind of trying to say.
One of
you know.
the one of I'll give you guys just one of my secrets as a director, is really just knowing what you don't know and being able to admit that you don't know what you don't know, as quickly as you can, and bringing in the people who are the best in the business at that, and who do know that. And Kelly could be the first one to tell you that I literally had no idea what I was doing in some of these scenes, but I would be the first person to say, Kelly, help me. Like, Jen is asking me how she's going to be hanging from this thing, and how long she's going to be hanging. Can you do me a favor? Just talk us both through. She hears it and she knows she's going to be safe, because it would be hard for me, and the actors respect it too, if I try to pretend like I know that this thing is going to hold her, or this rappel line is going to be to hold her. I have to clearly depend on somebody else who's going to say, yes, we've tested this 100 times and all that. So I think I see a few questions in here, but we still have some stuff to show, correct? So let me read. It looks like Olivia asked a question. Is it difficult to schedule as being the stunt double for several actors?
Yes. It's a good problem to have, though. I'm blessed because I get to turn down jobs, whereas before I was hoping for jobs. But I think a lot of it has to do with, well, right now my priority is Jen, because I've been with her for a few years, and I want to get in with her coordinating her stuff too. And she's a producer for a lot of things, and I love her team and I love everybody. So I'm thinking more for the future. So my priority is to be with her and her team. But luckily she doesn't do a ton of stuff all the time. It's not like she's going from show to show to show. So that allows me to be able to jump around to other things. But I think, again, it's just following your gut when it comes to a lot of times with my family too. If I get offered a job and it seems like impossible to make work with my daughter or my husband's schedule or whatever it may be, then I just politely turn it down. And I feel like that's worked. Like, if you just trust that not every job is for you, then it works out. I'm happy that I get to give jobs to other people. You get to know the people in your height range and kind of your skill set. I got so many hand-me-down jobs from a well-seasoned stunt performer when I first started because she was too busy. And now I can return the favor to other upcoming stunt people as well. So that's like a really, really great feeling.
If someone wants to, if someone on this Zoom or somebody is interested in doing what you're doing,
Yeah.
what do they do right now? What's the thing that you would recommend to do right now?
Pick one thing that you're really, really good at. And if it's stunts or anything, actually, this can apply to any department. Pick your one thing that you're excellent at and get in the door that way, and then learn as much as you can otherwise. So if it's stunts, I was a gymnast. So I used my gymnastics ability to get into the door. And I was the token gymnast that people would hire to do the flips and the stuff and the whatever. And then I started building me as a gymnast and getting into the industry. Then I took my driving classes and now I can drive and I do a lot of water stuff and I got my scuba certification and my free diving. And so I think if you can, it's a good industry because you can do as much as you want these days. You're not pigeonholed as much as you used to be. I mean, stunt people can even act as well. You don't have to just do that. But I think it's important to pick one thing that you're really, really good at to get in the door, and just show your commitment and show your skill level and then go from there. So same thing with like directing. If you want to be a director, but you're a really good editor, start editing and doing a lot of that and showing all your editing stuff or whatever it may be, then learn this and then learn that and kind of go from there. But don't think that you can't do a lot because that's kind of stunts got me in for sure, but that's not where I'm just staying. I'm trying to do as much as I can. Um, and I just think that you just need the door to open. And once you get in, it's like the possibilities are pretty endless, if you commit the time and the effort to it. But I do think that it's nice if you come in, you have a little something to hold you, like a little background. You're not just like, oh, I woke up today and I want to be a director or a camera op, but you've never even picked up a camera. Like you have to be good at something and show that you've committed years and time to something. And I think that's kind of an important thing.
I would say, I mean, just, I know this is your class, but I just to bounce off of what you're saying, when I first graduated and to Los Angeles, everyone would be going out to the bars and going socialize that way, and I never liked that was just never my that was never really my scene. But I was asked to play on a softball team. I was working at Creative Artists Agency, and it was a Monday night at 5 o'clock, and the CAA softball team needed another player because they just needed somebody. And I remember there was an agent walking around saying, do you play softball? Do you play softball? Like walking to all the assistants. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh, please. I had my tie on and my headset. And I was like, oh, please come ask me. Please come ask me. Please come ask me. And he was like, you play softball? I was like, yeah, I play softball. And he goes to my boss. He's like, Mara, I'm taking your assistant. He's got to come play for the game. And I actually ended up replacing the guy who recruited me on the team and then played on that softball team for like 8 straight years. And that's how I literally met every single person in Hollywood, everyone I have relationships to now. My attorney, manager just came through playing on this team. So
Yeah.
just like if doing what that as a way in, and then it's
Totally.
easy.
Absolutely. And like and this is somebody, Jeremy, but and not like being afraid to verbalize and think about what you really want, because I wanted to be a stunt coordinator and I had at this time not a lot of credits, but I knew I could do it because I had shadowed a very well-known stunt coordinator and I knew my skill set. And it's the same thing. Stunt coordinators, they may not know everything about everything, but you hire the right people. And then that's who supports you. You hire the best car people, you hire the best riggers, whatever it may be. And I know I could do that. And a lot of it is organizing and that side of it, budgets and stuff. So I remember I was doing those Happy Death Day movies. I did 1 and 2, Happy Death Day 1 and 2, and one of the producers on it, Seth Meyer, whom you know, Jeremy, he was chatting with me one day, and I was just talking to him about I'd only done stunts on that movie. I was the lead double, but I told him, oh yeah, down the road I want to coordinate, blah blah. So I just put it out there, and then lo and behold, 6 months later, he needed a woman coordinator for a show, or he needed a gymnastics coordinator, and he called me just by putting it out there. He knew I didn't have a ton of experience as a coordinator, but he knew who I was as a person and knew who I was as a performer, knew how I took care of my actress, knew how I was on time, professional, all those things. It translates over to any part of where you want to go. It's more about your character and who you are, and your work ethic and all that. And everything else you just ask for help and you're honest with. So that was a cool thing too. It's just I just told him one day, I went down the road, and he called me. So, that was I think it's important to have the dreams, but back it up with something too, make sure that you're putting the work in and putting the effort in as well. Or just being confident with, oh, I know I can do this. I've done this, this, and this, which is similar to that, but I know I can do this. So I think that's an important kind of side of it as well.
There's a question from James. James, I don't need to read this question. James, why don't you read your question?
Oh, sure. So I was just asking, have any of your stunts gone wrong? And if they have, like, how do you get through them, and what advice do you have for getting through a stunt when it goes wrong?
Oh, hi, James. That is a good question. I think 90% of the time they don't go in your head as you would, but you guys wouldn't know that. Just the internal dialogue of myself would know that. But I think, well, I know that you do. Thinking, this is kind of morbid, but I always think of the worst case scenario of what could happen with my stunt. So I always plan for the worst and know my out. So if I'm doing something, I'm like, okay, if this goes wrong, how do I, as safely as possible, get out of it? And so thinking ahead and planning really helps, because in the split second, you could make the right decision or could fix it to where you're not hurting somebody. But a lot of times it's just trusting your body. Like our whole body is our job, and trusting your equipment, trusting all your planning. I like to visualize what I'm about to do, and then I don't think too much of it, and I just go for it and do it. And if it does, I learned this early on too. If you do something and you're not hurt, but you feel like it wasn't that good, don't say anything, because everybody, like, I remember one time somebody did something and they're like, oh, that wasn't that good. And the director heard it and was like, oh, I guess that wasn't good, go again. But if they say, got it, moving on, they got it. Like, don't say anything. Like, and so many times I've done something, I was like, well, that fucking sucked. And then the director's like, that was great. And I'm like, that was great. So it's just also, you're not seeing the big picture always, because you're in your little tunnel of your stunt. But I mean, yeah, stuff goes wrong. But again, preparation is important. And knowing you're out. Like, if you're driving a car somewhere and you're like, if the brakes die, where am I going to go? I'm going to swerve left because there's no cameras or people there. Okay, I'm going to swerve left. Just so kind of pre-planning that kind of stuff. And it's kind of fun sometimes when you mess up a little bit and you have to adjust to it. And sometimes something cooler comes around. I think my live show background kind of helps with that. A lot of stunt performers come from live shows, and that teaches you to just be on your toes the whole time, because it's always different. So yeah, that's that.
Thank you.
Question now. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I was going to ask. Somebody have a question? Oh, okay. So, good question though. Sorry, Kelly. Excellent question. Something as a director, I've been working with stunt people, and as an assistant to a director, Joel Schumacher, who is just a gigantic action director. I've been working with stunt people for a long time. I know that stunt people are, in general, the coolest people on set. So without a doubt, all stunt people are the coolest people on set, because they're the ones who are setting themselves on fire. They're the ones who are just be like, I'll be the one, just punch me in the face. It's not it's kind of, stunt people have like a different mentality. And also stunt people, for the most part, they don't really have I don't know. It's not. They don't have the any airs of. There's like no ego with stunt people, or at least the ones that I've worked with. Everyone just loves what they really love what they're doing, and they really have a good time. You had pointed out like being good at something. I would even make it even. And you leaning into the kind of the gymnastics and the flipping. I would even go within stunts for sure. I've been like, people are like, oh, this person's a great set himself on fire person. Like, I know the best person who loves to set themselves off. Like, there's like a very specific thing, very specific jobs. Oh, this guy, Paul's the best at falling down steps. He's like, he loves falling down steps. So we got to get this falling down steps guy.
Yeah.
So it is awesome. Let me ask you a question. How is it? Most of the stunt people I've worked with are stunt men, and how is it to be the one of the only female stunt people in the world, or at your level?
I enjoy it because I feel like I have a daughter too. I have a daughter, and I feel like I have a responsibility for women who want to do something in the predominantly men's world, to show them that they can. Of course, even when I met your daughter, Jeremy, she was so cute, and I was teaching her gymnastics, and that's a really cool responsibility that I get to have. I also think men and women work really beautifully together in the stunt world if everybody's doesn't have egos and everybody just takes from everything. What I'm good at, the stunt man might not be good at, and vice versa. So if we work together, it's very nice. And I think that women just create like a different comfortability for some actors. Like all my women actors are very women forward in this industry. They love seeing women in power roles and successful roles, and so they would want their double and their stunt coordinator to be a woman, because it's showing the evolution of women and diversity in this industry. And so I think I love it. I have no problem. I'm usually the only woman. I get happy when there's other women, just because it's super fun. And I grew up on a gymnastics team, and I have 5 sisters, so I love working with women too. But it's also nice to be with men and just seeing how, for me, I see how they work, and I can either pull from that or say, oh, that's something I wouldn't do. And it helps me when I coordinate, to know how to speak to different types of people and different genders and different, how this person's going to receive this information, and how this woman will see this information is different than the man. And so I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I think it's a hard road sometimes, though, especially as a coordinator. I've gotten some scoffs and some, ugh, you're the coordinators, and stuff like that. Usually from crusty old men that are fading themselves out anyways. But like, one of my first jobs was a TV show, and I was talking to the special effects guy, because he was building me a sink that the actor sits on, and it falls, and he falls to the water or whatever, to the ground, or some water. And I was like, hi, I'm Kelly, I'm the stunt coordinator. Can I test that sink that you built for us? And he was you're the coordinator? I mean, just totally disgusted by me. And then by the end of the season, he was coming to me asking me, how do we do this? How should we do this? And so I turned his mind around. But yeah, you have to be pretty much confident in yourself, and just sticking with it and having thick skin. I've cried many a times on my way home in my car by myself, but never in front of anybody. So but it's nice. I've seen the evolution of it changing, which is really nice. It's not so rare that you see women grips, or women camera ops, or women stunt coordinators and whatnot. But I also think there's it's less women, because sometimes women want to have a family, and it's a hard industry on your body. Our body is our tool. And once you have a baby, things are different, and you may not have the desire to do it anymore too. So it's just in any athlete. We're professional athletes. So in any sport, women have this innate thing that maybe they want to have a family, or they want to, get married and whatnot. But you can do it all. I think I'm trying to balance it all. So, but yeah, I don't mind it. I think that men and women work really nice together if we pull from each other and listen to each other, and there's no ego attached. Yeah.
think we got a really lovely clip there. I thought that was beautifully said. That was amazing.
Thanks.
One thing, Kelly, that it occurred to me at some point in my career, but I never really paid attention to it. Most in most jobs within the entertainment industry, within making a movie, you're sort of paid per, you have a salary, or you're paid per, for the day, or you're paid for doing a draft of the script. You're paid in that way. And at some point I was told that stunt people are paid per the stunt, and you get, or you're paid bonuses for stunts, and the more dangerous the stunt, the more money that you get. And then you get more if you do a stunt twice or three times, you get paid every single. So if you fall down the stairs, every single time you fall down the stairs, every time a director says, let's go again, you get twice as much. You keep getting much. So my question to you is, have you ever asked a director to just see if you could go as possible so you could get paid more money?
I would never do such a thing. Some stunts I don't want to do more than once, so I'm happy with that. But there's some where I'm like, you didn't get that angle, did you? We should probably do that again, because the director doesn't always know like what the producer, the line producer's like shitting themselves in the corner, like, not again. But yeah, I mean, it's, of course, like we get a base pay, we get our union pay, and then each time you do the stunt or how hard the stunt is, you get a stunt adjustment, it's called. So as a coordinator, you'd budget ahead of time. Like if you did a job where you had someone fall down the stairs, you'd say, oh, I need an extra $2,000 or whatever it may be, and you budget that with the producer, they approve it. And then on the day, if they do it once, maybe you give them less. If they do it more, you add some more to it. But yeah, I've definitely been like, well, but a lot of times because I just want to do it again because I feel like we could get something better or whatever. But I've definitely, hey, it would be really cool if you had like a low angle of this, right? Knowing that like maybe I'll get a little bit more rent money in my pocket or something. But yeah, for sure, that's definitely a thing. And then it can kind of bite you in the ass though sometimes, because it's not guaranteed. So you can like do a really hard stunt. It's like a fire burn, which is a good money making stunt. But you could get like paid a ton of money on some big budget thing to do a fire. But then you do like an independent film or something smaller, they just don't have the budget and you just don't get as much. So then you get this weird mentality of like, oh, well, on this one I got this, so I need that, So you can't do anything. You can't do the stunt thinking that you're going to get the adjustment. I always take the stunt thinking that I'll take the stunt for no extra money. And if I do that stunt, everything else is just like icing on the cake. Like the stunt adjustment's just like an extra bonus. But yeah, I definitely have squeezed in some extra shopping money here and there.
A lot of our students are filmmakers. They'll probably start by doing more independent, low budget, where they'll have to ask people for favors. And for some of my early movies, I would do short films and things that would require stunts. And it was literally like I would ask favors, but the stunt community is such a small community, and everyone likes to like mentor people. And I remember it was actually a fire stunt. I remember I was working with Eddie Yancig, who was one of our amazing stunt people for Joel Schumacher, and he and Johnny Arthur, and I knew that there was a stunt person. He was like, okay, we have a stunt guy who's going to come, and he needs to do a fire burn, right? He needs to light himself on fire for a certain number of times before he could join the union. And
Yeah.
I was like, he could set himself, as long as you're like making sure that he's fine. Set yourself on fire ever?
Yeah. I've done a few fire burns.
I'm just kidding.
Wait, what'd you say? I didn't hear that.
You ever set yourself like, I know, like outside?
For a movie? No, just for fun on a Saturday night. Yeah, no, yeah, I've done that. But yeah, that goes back to the reel. When you're a stunt person and you need some footage, a lot of the good things is doing the student films or doing the independent favors and stuff. Then you get your reel. You're a lot of times in the beginning you're doing stuff for free, or you're doing stuff for the future to build that. So people are willing to do it. just on the other side of it, if you're the director or producer or whatever, just be an understanding that like this is for free. So maybe you don't want to do it 5 times, maybe just make sure you get your one shot. If that person's, falling all over the place, don't get greedy with your, oh, well, this one, you know what I mean? They still, they're not like they're not a dummy. They're not like a body you can just throw around. So I think a little give and take on that too, and whatnot. But a lot of people are willing to do that, to do just for the experience. I've done like a bunch of that before and gotten jobs from it, full paying jobs down the road. So I think that, yeah, but that's, that we see those all the time. We have like a little stunt community page and people are doing like student films or independent films and stuff. And people are more than willing to help out, I think, because it does come full circle. The more you help people out, the more it will come back to you. I've been a PA many a times. I've done a bunch of stuff, I've AD'd here and there on a student film, like just everything, helped with office stuff. So, and that just goes back to, you're just enhancing your skill set anyways. Even if it's for a student film, it's still run the same way. It's still making movies. So I think it's a good learning tool too.
Elaborate on any time that you've done a favor for somebody, or you worked on somebody who was doing a student film or an independent film as a favor, or worked with somebody, and then that favor has come back to kind of to provide for you, or provide an opportunity, or karmically come back.
Yeah, I did. I was the armorer on a friend's short film. No, unpaid, of course, but dealing with guns and all that is, obviously they wanted somebody that knew what they were doing. So I was the armorer on that. They didn't have many more stunts. It was just kind of the gun safety stuff, which is huge. And then it was just a little 3-day shoot. I did that. And then he got a big movie. I mean, he got a, $5 million movie, and I got to be the stunt coordinator on that. So he remembered that. It was about 1.5 years difference time wise, but that was a huge thing. And then, like I said, with Seth, one of the producer friends of mine, I was stunt double for him on 2 movies. And then fast forward, I've done like 4 or 5 things for him. I just did, that Jake Johnson movie for him, and like, bigger stuff. So I think a lot of people are just looking for help, and that's fine. You don't look at it as someone's taking advantage. Just look at it as an opportunity for you. Like, oh, they're using me for free for 14 hours. Don't say I get 14 hours of experience, because you don't always get that. You guys have this amazing opportunity as well at American High. Side note, my hat. Thank you. I love my hat. But you don't always get that like everywhere you go. And so I think look at it as, instead of like, when I first started in the business, I would be on set and people would be like, oh God, I hope we get wrapped soon. And I'm just like standing in the back, like watching like how the director's doing that. And how, I'm like, this is free information that, you don't always get. So don't look at it as a negative thing. Like, oh gosh, I got to go hand waters out to people for 12 hours as PA. Think like, oh, look what I get to learn. I'm sure you've had some jobs, Jeremy, in the beginning of your career that weren't so glorious and glamorous.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it's funny you say we've had a few guest lecturers who are at the top of their game in their industry, and it seems like everyone comes back to that one point, which is you have to want to be where you are. Every single person, everyone's like, what's the difference between like, why would somebody want to hire you? And it's all like, no matter if you're shoveling shit or you're cleaning your boss's Porsche, or taking his stuff to get dry cleaned, and he's or playing racquetball with him at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm not saying anything in particular about any person, but you do it with a smile on your face, and you have to be psyched to be there. And the difference between the people who are psyched to be where they are at age 19, 20, like those people are going to be the same at age furnace, you know, we're like,
38. Yeah,
listen, directing Murder
true.
Mystery 2 was, you know, seems really glamorous, but
It was tiring. It was tiring.
It's an exhausting job. It was hard, and there were probably times where I was thinking about jumping off the Eiffel Tower. Definitely there were.
Yeah.
It's really hard to always be smiling and like pinch myself and say, "Holy cow, I'm directing a movie with Adam Jennifer on the, and we're standing on top of the Eiffel Tower, and we've shut down and like 100 people jumping into the Sand River." You know, like I would remind myself of that because it was hard.
Yeah, I mean, we're only human, right? We're tired, we miss our families, we're like over it all. Like I have moments and I have to like be like, snap the fuck out of it. You could be working one of these shitty ass jobs you used to have that, you know, and we get to do this. I think if you look at it that way, of course you'll have your days. I still do, everyone does. But it's if you still have that mindset that you should be there, like you're good enough to be there, but you are lucky to be there as well. Because we're all replaceable, you know, and that's not like trying to be mean to anybody. Of course, I've been replaced before. There's other people that can do my job as well. So you're still lucky to be where you're at. It's just how you look at it. And again, you have moments you're like, I hate this right now, or I'm so tired, or this is sucky, or I wish da. But it's still better than the alternative, you know? It's still like someone told me back in the day, like, just always be that person that's willing to take out the trash, you know? Even if you're Clint Eastwood or Jennifer Aniston, they are successful because they're talented, of course, but they're nice to people, they're respectful, and they would still put the work in. You know, you have to put the work in at whatever level you're at. You have to, like, if there's a trash that needs to be taken out, just take the trash out, you know, pick it up, help people, just do it. You're not above that. No one is. So I think if you look at it that way, like you said, Jeremy, that's what breeds success, is somebody that's willing to put the work in, and they're never better than the rest. Somebody has asked the question.
Said it's always also I'd say it's the people who are willing to admit or say that they are replaceable that are the ones that are completely irreplaceable. But I would literally be so lost on that movie if you were not there, and you are the opposite of being replaceable. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question from Alyssa. Alyssa, why don't you ask you?
Alyssa, yeah, go ask me. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay. My question is, are there any tasks or jobs that stunt coordinators are in charge of, or things that kind of probably not as obvious that your job may entail, just like knowing as a filmmaker, like assigning people different roles of jobs?
Yes. So, for instance, if this was a script that we got, you know, the 8-page thing, if that was the whole script, my job is to break down the script and find the action, hire the appropriate people for it, whether it's a stunt double for the actor, whether it's a nondescript stunt person, which would be somebody that jumps out of the way of a car, or a pedestrian that falls into the Seine River or something. So I hire those people. I also work with, if there's an explosion or something that has to do with special effects, then I need to get with special effects to build the van that, for instance, the van that we used, it was on a hydraulics thing. So we worked with special effects to build the hydraulic system to make the van on stages go back and forth. I would say almost every single department. It's not always as in depth for like costumes or something like that. Like I said, if it was a crazy stunt where they were getting hit by a car, I would need to go to costumes and say, you know, whatever. And even as far as like, does my person need to be wigged? Does my stunt double need to be wigged? Do they have the appropriate hair? Like those little things too, because on the day, if no one has pictures of my double and they show up and it's a whole different hairdo, now we can't even shoot the scene. And most stunt people are not willing to shave their head for one day of work or something like that. And then we do the budget too. So if you're making, a lot of times, if you're doing a student film or a smaller film or something you're self-funding, you're playing the role of the producer and the director as well. So it's good to remember, like I would build the budget too. and it's something that you'd have to look at and approve and say, oh gosh, I don't have that much money for that, then you would have to let go of some of your stunts, or we'd have to change it a little bit. Maybe the car doesn't flip, maybe the car just skids or something. So that kind of logistical stuff kind of comes into it as well. And then if you have questions like about how you'd want to shoot something, we do a lot of previses, especially for fight scenes, where we'll videotape everything we do and we'll send it over to the director, and they may say, oh, I love this, or maybe change this. Or so the more proactive as a filmmaker you can be with your coordinator, we love that. Like, I was just on a film and it was an amazing film, but we were never getting feedback from the director, and it was a wrestling film, so we were choreographing these massive wrestling scenes with actors too. And then on the day he would change the whole thing, and it's like, we've been working on this for 3 weeks and actors are not like, we can change fight scenes because that's what we're used to, but you can't expect an actor to remember 8 pages of dialogue and change their choreo that they've known for 3 weeks. So like, you have to look at the stunt too. Like, if it's a fight scene or something that's very heavily choreographed, then ask for previses. Say, can I get a previs of the stunt? Or even if something simple like, how would this person land after they do this? Or how would you shoot this, or stuff like that. Like, the more communication you can have with your stunt coordinator, they will love that. You're not a burden at all, like, because the more you can make it on the day easier, the better. The more you can do before they shoot, the better. So within reason, you don't need to see what a stair fall looks like before the stair fall, but if you want to say, hey, I want them to start halfway up the stairs and can they somehow land here? Or I want them to start on this and stop and use this banister and then this banister break. So the more like, because a lot of times stuff's written very differently than your vision in a way. Like, you say, oh, then Kelly falls down the stairs. And you're like, oh, well, I really wanted her to grab the banister and then she swings around and then she goes backwards and then she grabs a purse and then like she lands on somebody. So the more specific you can be with what you want in your vision is good too. But yeah, just as I think every department has a hand in every other department in some way. It's just a matter of like how stunt heavy the film is. And I've noticed a lot with fight stuff, and I've noticed a lot when you're having your actors do action. Give them as much time to rehearse and make it nice, clean, and simple for them, and find your good cuts to where you can put a good double in. And that's really, really important, because by hour 3 of doing a 4-minute fight scene and dialogue, your actor is going to be toast, and it gets messy and some people get hurt. And so just planning ahead for that kind of stuff, and using your doubles wisely. There's times where I'm like sitting on set and I'm like, hey, you could just be using me right now, even if it was just for like shooting from behind, somebody running away. Just use your doubles.
To piggyback off of that, Kelly, we do have one more question from Olivia that says, do you have any advice for writing out stunts in a script that are exciting but will still translate well onto screen?
Yeah, I think that writing it in like a very broad idea is fine, because you can't write out a 5-page stair fall like I just did. But what you want from that. So that's where your communication with your stunt coordinator comes in. I get my script and it says, oh, Kelly falls down the stairs, right? It doesn't, in the script, it doesn't need to look glamorous, because that's not what's translating on the screen. But make sure when you have a call with your coordinator, or when you guys have production meetings, or when you guys get together, say, hey, I know it says stair fall, but I actually want her to go forward, halfway down, flip around, grab a purse, fly off the railing. Like, then communicate that. And then I, in turn, would say, oh, okay, great. And I'm going to make a note on my script about that and make sure that gets done on the day. So it doesn't necessarily have to be written out to a T on the script, but you need to express it to your stunt coordinator well ahead of time, before the day of, to make sure that everybody gets what they want. Because there's nothing worse too than being a stunt performer or a stunt coordinator that's not getting enough information, and then you feel like you are the one messing up the shot. You didn't give me the tools to do it, so I can't do it. And now I feel like I'm failing everybody. But if you would have just told somebody ahead of time, we could have made sure we could get done. So the more preparation, and it could be a simple email, a simple call. Like, we get busy and stuff, but it's not one that doesn't go like unappreciated, for sure. I'd rather be up at midnight talking to the director to make sure it goes smoothly on the day than getting surprises on the day, you know? And even if it's like, we might want to do it this way or this way, if you have two options, tell them. And you might not, but just tell your vision, you know?
I think part, Olivia, I would also just say from someone who wrote out the script and then wrote stunts, part of hiring the people around you, this is you're hiring robots, you're hiring people who are filmmakers and creators, and everyone wants to participate, and everyone wants to kind of everyone wants to do the best job on a movie. So you want the best from everybody. So I'm always looking for people to say, okay, I know it says this, I know you wrote this, but how about this? And a lot of times I'll say, you know what, I think that's really awesome. I just know that we're not gonna have time to do that in the final cut. So I really want this. But sometimes I'll say, holy cow, that is amazing. Let's do that. That's so awesome. So it really is, it does just come back to, when you're writing something or you're directing a movie, is surround yourself with people who want to be there, surround yourself with creative people who just want the best for the movie, and then don't curve. It's the same thing when you're directing actors. You know, you have a vision in your head of how you want the actor to say something, and sometimes the actor will say it the way you had that vision, and sometimes the actor is going to come in and say something like, they'll change the line, or they'll say it in a completely different way, and sometimes it'll be better. A lot of times, especially when you're working with actors who have been doing this for a long time and, you know, are the biggest stars in the world, there's a reason.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to this original script and then you watch the van scene, if you look at just specifically inside the van fight, none of it's really written out what we did, you know? So it has an idea of what Jeremy wanted, and then he gave us the creativity to be able to do these things. I mean, I don't think it was written out that he gets hung out the side, and I don't think it's written out that he gets slant. Like there's stuff that we just created and came up with. Because and also it's a lot for one person to take on one script, and you know, as a director or writer, it's a lot. So that's why he said you hire people that want to be there and creative, and give everybody the time, you know, ahead of time. Obviously things change on the day, but you know, we would have never been able to shoot on the Eiffel Tower if JJ Perry, our second unit director, wasn't like, we're shooting on the tower, and gave us months to prep for that. If he would have said, hey, next week we're shooting on the tower, we would have had to do it on a green screen. So, you know, just, you know, coming up with that kind of stuff, I think is important too, like having the preparation, but also, you know, trusting and not micromanaging your people, and letting you be surprised by stuff too. That's really fun. I always have a vision, and then it's like really fun when someone does something better and you're like, whoa, that was way cooler than I thought. So
I was looking for our previs here, Kelly, of what we've done. We sort of hit the place where in the script, because it's not scripted out, but once we hit the place where we're doing this and we got our stunt team, the amount of previs I did on this sequence, I kind of moved it from the script to its own thing, where we had basically edited and drawn out the entire sequence before we did it. I was looking for it, and I just found Andy. I just found the original thing. And see this
the compilation.
Oh my god! Wow! Is that it?
Andy, did you cut this?
I found the clips, but my editing skills are weak, so
that's so cool.
So all of our students right here who are watching, who have participated in like various projects, and sometimes they don't know where the project is going and like what the is. But this was an inspiration reel that was put together by our interns.
Wow, incredible. I mean, so many similarities, huh?
What's funny is that there was like this was kind of,
look at that. That's
everyone knew what you were working on necessarily. So I didn't know what it was going towards, and then we did the premiere of the film at the school, and as soon as the scene came on, I
We were
literally
like,
pulled the
"Ah."
person aside and was like, I think that I helped with this kind of.
I mean, that was incredible. Like the guy hanging out that gets smashed. Like that's, I think what we're such in a lucky world too that we can have all these clips and films at our disposal. Like one click button, you can see everything. It's like use that as inspiration. Don't feel like you're stealing somebody's stuff. Just use it as inspiration and use the what we have out there.
I don't know
I
what,
think that's super fun.
but anyway, it was
And we also did and you also did the animatics for this thing. This was a pretty full on scene because of how long it took us to shoot. And we shot in Hawaii, we shot on the stages in France, we shot outside France. I mean, we shot in 4 different places or 3 months long, different times, different things, different whatever. So as we evolved, like you also made the animatics thing. We also like learned a lot as we went along. So and that sometimes that was pretty chaotic. It doesn't always, it just with locations, because we shot at actual locations and stuff, it was tricky. But it was a good learning experience. Like you had to really be on your game and remember stuff. And like we like did a pre-vid, or we did like rehearsals, and then we didn't shoot it for like a month later. So like that's, that was pretty tricky and challenging as well.
Well, Kelly, I want to we've already used up an hour, minutes of your time. We
Oh,
probably
it's so fun.
another 5 hours, but we're not going to do that to you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming out and doing this. And I would also just say to all of our future filmmakers and directors who are here in this class, if you ever need a stunt coordinator or somebody to just do everything for you, or hire a filmmaker, Kelly is awesome, and you should remember her when you're going to make your movie. And thank you, Kelly.